Hi guys, welcome to another Road Pilgrim car review, and today we have the Skoda Scala on review, which is this very cute and handsome looking hatchback behind me. Now, this car was actually originally launched a couple of years ago, and that was launched in a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder setup, and that's existed within category B COE. But this car that you see behind me is actually category A, and it has had a sort of a downsize in terms of engine, so now it runs a 3-cylinder 1-litre turbocharged engine. And I think with re-releases like that, where cars have been re-released to fit certain COE requirements, I think the question is always about whether or not there have been a huge amount of compromise made to the car in order to fit these COE requirements. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take the car for a drive, of course, but before we do that, we're also going to check out its exterior and of course check out its cabin as well, as a little bit of a refresher to those of you who may not remember the car. Before we get going with the review, however, if you are thinking about selling your car in Singapore, be sure to check out the link in the description box below, because through this link we will be able to provide you the highest valuation and quote for your car. Or we could also help you to consign your car in the open market. It's free to inquire and there are no transaction fees or hidden fees, so be sure to check out the link. With that, let's go on with the review. Let's go. Right, so this is the exterior of the Skoda Scala 1.0, and this particular car looks particularly handsome because this is actually done up in a Monte Carlo trim level, which of course you can see means that there has been a certain level of dechroming done to the car, and of course there are some body trims that are different as well, and of course inside the car you also see some differences later on. But one thing I want to highlight about the Skoda Scala is that although this is considered a hatchback, I do feel like the car is jacked up a little bit, so it doesn't really feel like an all-out hatchback per se. Also, for a hatchback, this car actually has a very decent size boot, which means that it kind of looks a little bit more elongated at the end. So from certain angles, it could actually be confused for a petite size wagon, so to speak. But all in all, I think this car looks actually really nice in the Monte Carlo trim. Very modern, especially this part here where the Skoda emblem actually blends into the glass panel really nicely, and I think that looks super good. Another thing that I think looks super cool is of course the Monte Carlo badge at the side over here. And one thing that I noticed about the Scala is that its nose profile actually is a little bit more upright than say a Skoda Octavia, which has a little bit more of a sloping nose, and I think this one looks a lot better. It looks a lot more fierce, and actually it reminds me of the new Skoda Enyaq EV that we will be trying out very soon as well. So this is the exterior. Let's jump inside and check out the rest of the car. Alright, so this is the front of the or the cabin of the Skoda Scala, and what you need to know is that this exact car, or the Skoda Scala as a whole, was released quite a couple of years ago, and of course this is sort of a refresh with a more applicable engine that better fits our current COE prices. So what you get is actually a cabin that is slightly older. So this is not the same cabin that you'll find on the Skoda Octavia, which of course has had the latest cabin layout that's put into the car. So the infotainment unit looks a bit different. When it's off, actually looks about the same, but what is missing, of course this is still a touchscreen, but the graphics are all still a little bit older. The ones on the Octavia are a bit nicer, and of course you lack these shortcut buttons that you find on the Octavia. But generally speaking, this is still a decent looking piece of tech. It's clear. Graphics are not the most eye-catching, but they do the job. They work well. You see? Yeah, there we go. And you also get a dashboard that comes in this I don't suppose this is real carbon fiber, but it comes in a carbon fiber finish. Door handles are actually very similar. You still get these. And then of course you've got a flat bottom steering wheel. This steering wheel hasn't really changed, so this is still the same one that you get on the current or the latest designs. And actually I believe the driver's display, the digital driver's display is also the same. Let me just do a quick check here. Are they the same? Let me see. They look the same to me. Maybe some slight differences, but still a very sleek looking system. It's still digital. Of course, as usual, your fuel gauge and your temperature gauge are not exactly digital, but the rest of the display is. This is a flat bottom steering wheel like I mentioned, and it does have the Monte Carlo emblem here to let you know that this is a Monte Carlo trim. You do get pedal shifters, and you do get this red stitching around the steering wheel that lets you know that you're in a slightly higher trim level. And this red stitching, of course, generally red is the generally accepted color for speed. So what you find is that you also have some red color panels on the seats here, and these are sport seats that hug your body. So these are really nice, and you do get some more red stitching on the handbrake lever and the shifter as well. And I know some of you are thinking that this car still has a shifter, which actually I kind of like, because I do kind of miss having this feeling of engaging and disengaging a handbrake. It's just a very, very authentic feeling, which I kind of enjoy. And this is still a shifter rather than that little selector that you get on new Skodas today. It's not the best looking shifter in the world, but I actually really enjoy having it around, because when I'm driving and I just kind of want to have something to hold in terms of having this shifter here. It's a really nice, it makes you feel really assured. But anyway, I think I digress, because all that is super subjective. Yes, you do have 2-zone climate control, dual zone, so each passenger can select their own temperature, which is quite nice actually, because some cars in this segment actually only have single zone climate control. So this is something to take note of. There is a holder here. I don't think it's a wireless charging pad, because it doesn't say so, but it does have this this tray, this removable tray inlay, which is made of rubber, which means that you can actually wash this out, which is super useful. As you know, the tagline of Skoda is simply clever, so these are just some of the simply clever features that you get in the car. There's also USB ports here in case you need them, and you got some cup holders here which you can double up as storage spaces, and you got a tiny little bin in the middle here, which I think is size appropriate for the car. Alright, so this is the back of the Skoda Scala, and this driver's seat, this one here, is in my regular driving position, and I am 175 meters tall, and I actually still have a very decent amount of leg room here. Headroom is also actually quite good. I mean, it's not super great, but there is definitely enough space. My head isn't touching the top, and keep in mind that this car has a panoramic roof that comes with the car, which is why everything looks so wide and open, which is actually really nice, because this is a compact vehicle. It is a hatchback, but when you're seated at the back here, especially with the panoramic roof open, you still feel like there's a very open sense to the car, and the whole car feels very spacious. There's a lot of headroom, a lot of, like, visually you don't feel like you are too cluttered, you know, in a small vehicle. So I think that's already nice. If I were to slouch, sit in a more natural position, I do get a lot more headroom, but of course I still have enough leg room here. The seats are also nicely positioned. They are jacked out a little bit. They're not, you know, flush to the ground, so you do have space to put your feet underneath, and so that definitely helps when you are, you know, on longer journeys and you want to extend your legs a little bit. There are rear aircon vents here, but they do not have a dedicated climate control. So these rear aircon vents will actually rely on the ones on the climate settings that are done from the front. I probably wouldn't try to carry 3 passengers in the rear of the Scala, just because this is a little bit this isn't a super wide car, and in fact, although this car does share a lot of similarities with the Octavia in terms of chassis and drivetrain, The Octavia is a little bit wider as well. So if you do have requirements for carrying 3 at the back, probably something like an Octavia might be a little bit better. But of course, if you're just carrying 2 passengers at the rear, or if you're just carrying kids, then I think this is a really great option, because if I'm comfortable back here, I think smaller size ladies, teenagers should be fine in the back of the car here. There are also ISOFIX points. We just remove the clips, and then you can actually insert a car seat. And I think there's definitely enough space for a rearward facing car seat. I think space utilization in the cabin is actually quite decent. So with that, let's go take this car for a drive, because I want to find out whether or not the 1 litre engine has compromised the entire joy of driving a Skoda Scala. Let's go. Alright guys, so now we are up on the roads in the Skoda Scala, and to get some base specifications out of the way, this car runs a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine with about 109 horsepower, and Skoda says that this will get you from 0 to 100 in about 10 seconds or so. In reality, I think the car feels a bit faster. Around town, there's quite a bit of torque in the engine, quite a lot of low-end torque, which is very usable in an urban setting. So the car does feel a little bit quicker than 10 seconds, to be very honest, which I think is a really positive thing. And one of the big surprises I feel about the Scala is that despite having a very similar drivetrain to the Octavia, the car actually feels a whole lot different, like completely two different cars altogether. So while the Octavia feels like a much bigger car per se, a lot more composed on the road, the Scala feels like a much sportier car. So I feel like the power kicks in a little bit more actively here, and steering also feels a little bit sharper, and I think steering weight especially feels a bit heavier in the Scala, and you get a little bit more control, which I think is actually really pleasant, because it is kind of I mean, as a hatchback, and especially in this Monte Carlo trim as well, I think buyers of this car, or people who are looking to buy this car, will probably be looking to have something a little bit more sporty in nature. So I think that all ties in very nicely. If you are interested to find out more about the Octavia as another option, I actually have already done the review of the Octavia, so you can actually click up here to check out that particular review and see how you feel about both the cars. In this Monte Carlo trim, the Scala is actually quite similarly priced to the Octavia, and I think it really, you know, which car you end up with or which car you prefer, I think will really depend on what you are using the car for. If you are taking a lot more longer journeys, and if you live quite a far distance from your workplace and you drive quite a fair amount every single day, a lot of expressway driving, or if you take trips up to Malaysia quite often, I think the Octavia would be a really great option. And of course, it does have a bigger boot as well, so in terms of its practicality and its family hauling capabilities, I think that one's a little bit better. But if you're using the car around town, and if you're not traveling huge distances every single day, or you are traveling a lot within start-stop traffic, I think the Scala might actually be a more enjoyable drive. So that's definitely something to consider when you're making a decision about these cars. Another option, which I think comes in very handy, would probably be to spend a little bit more and go for something like a Golf, which of course is a time-tested model. The Volkswagen Golf of course runs a 4-cylinder 1.5 litre engine, so you do pay a little bit more for road tax, but that has actually also been spec'd down to fit within category A COE. So it is not all that unreasonable to buy as a car, and I think still sits within very close consideration to this particular Skoda Scala as well. So if you are interested, check out the review of the Golf, the Cat A version of the Golf. You can click here, I'll leave the link up there, and you can check that out. So to summarize everything, I think the Skoda Scala would make a really great maybe maybe like a second car to have in the stable, or something that you don't use primarily as a family car, but you use as an alternative car when you're running errands, or when you're driving around town, or you're making short trips here and there. It is very zippy, very fun to drive, very engaging. So I think all that is very, very cool. If I have missed out anything about the car that you want to know about, please feel free to put your questions in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And of course, if you have found this review useful in any way, or if you have enjoyed this review, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. We would greatly appreciate that. And we have new reviews coming up every single week, so it would be really nice to have you with us on those reviews as well. Before we end off the video, if you are thinking about selling your car in Singapore, be sure to check out the link in the description box below, because through this link we will be able to provide you the highest possible quote and valuation for your used car. Alternatively, we can also help you to consign it on the open market for an even better price. It is completely free to inquire. There are no transaction fees, no hidden fees. So if you are thinking about selling your used car, please check out the link. And if not, as usual, stay safe, take care of yourself, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.